Alright, so today I'm going to show you how to make a simple but effective pistol rack system for inside your gun safe. Now, I took inspiration when I made these from several pre-made pistol racks and kind of went my own way with it. I was looking at things like the high score pistol rack system, and the thing I didn't like about them was they were entirely made out of foam, and they looked like they were good, but there was two things I didn't like. One, the dividing panels were real thin foam, and apparently were easily moved and shifted, and guns could lay on each other. And the other thing I didn't like about them was for most of the different sizes, they didn't fit revolvers very well, or at all in some cases. And being that I have a lot of revolvers, I want one that would fit revolvers. So I figured I would make my own. I'm going to show you how I made this, and you can feel free to copy it if you want. And as you can see, that's a revolver, and it fits in there quite nicely. You have to stand up, and there you go. So let's turn the camera around, and I'll show you how I made it. Alright, so let's get down to it. So basically this is made out of two materials. One being I used high density foam. Happened to find cushion foam. This came from Walmart, made in America. I know that's very shocking for a Walmart item, but this was only about $6, and it is more than enough to make several of these. And the other thing you're going to need is some foam board. Now this is like poster board. It's just foam with a sheet of like paper on top. It's just poster board. But the point is, it's very rigid, which is what we're looking for, and one of the reasons why I am doing this over the high score style, where it's just foam that can flop around. So, starting out, what you need to do is once you're gonna have to figure out how big you want it, how many slots you want. But the one thing it doesn't change, and what I can show you how to do, is the basic dimensions. So what you'll do is you'll cut out your dividers out of the foam board, and I have some already pre-cut. So measurements on these is going to be, they are 7.5 inches long, and at the highest point they are 6 inches tall. And what you'll do is, to make them, I measured it out on paper and made a template, because it's a lot easier to figure out your measurements on paper than having to cut it out on foam board. So once I got my measurements, you trace it out onto the foam board, and you'll cut out as many as you'll need. As I said, you'll have to count depending upon how many slots you want to have for pistols. That'll determine how many you need. So once you trace it out, cutting it out, you can do different things. You can use a box cutter that works all right. Just make sure you have a sharp blade in it. You can cut this stuff with scissors, but it can be kind of hard to get the angle, especially when you're rounding it. The thing I found that works the best is this. Now this is a electric turkey carver, and can't tell you how many uses there are for these things. I've pretty much cutting just about any foam product. They're really good, and you can get one of these for like $10. I've had this one for a long time, and it's never let me down. So once you trace out your dividers, like I said, I've got about 5 of these here. Then you'll need your foam. Now I use foam I use 2 inches because the one nice thing is this sheet itself is 2 inches thick. So, and I measured, and one of the other things I didn't like about a lot of the other pistol racks this style were they weren't really thick enough for larger revolvers. You know, your 44s and larger 357s. So I wanted the spaces to be a little bit wider. So what I did was I just diced up the the foam mat into dividers like this. Now mine are, and as I said, you can tweak this as needed, but mine are obviously 2 inches wide, and they are about 4.5 inches tall. Because, and I'll show you, what I wanted to do was, when your divider is sitting there, I wanted it that you could have it sitting like that, and then you would put it like that. And now it's going to be kind of hard to show with it not all glued together, but when you glue it together and then you rest the gun in there, it sits real nice, and if it happens to fall over, you've still got the side plates keeping it from hitting the other guns, and all it's really hitting is the foam top, which is not going to worry about scratching up your finish on any of your guns. So they're going to be about 2 inches thick. As I was saying, they're about 4.5 inches tall, and just cube them out deep. I mean, they're only about 1.5 inches deep. That once again, you can decide how thick you want your the rest to be. You know, that's not that big a deal. And then you once again cut out as many as you need. And with the foam, once again, you can either use what I used, the electric turkey carver, or this actually does cut quite well. These are a really nice pair. Yes, I know the handle's pink, but these are actually really nice serrated scissors, and they cut foam and stuff like that really nice. So nice thing about this is you can do it and you don't need any fancy tools. I have seen a lot of wood ones out there that are really nice, but especially living somewhere where I can't make a whole lot of noise and a whole lot of mess, you know, it's kind of hard to sit there and run a jigsaw cutting out the pieces when you got neighbors. So once you get all those pieces cut out, decide how many guns you want, how long you want, you know, depending upon your dimensions of your shelves and your gun safe. What I do is to attach them, I went and got some JB Weld Clear. Now, one of the reasons why I got this one was set time is 5 minutes, and I found that that's about the time you're going to want for this. You can mix it up in small batches, and it's actually quite easy to use. They make faster stuff that sets in about a minute, and I found that wasn't enough time. And then they make their super strong stuff that takes several hours to set, and obviously you don't want to have to be sitting there holding stuff together, worrying about it fall apart for hours on end until the epoxy hardens. So what you do is, now I found obviously by the time you're done cutting this out, you're gonna have about depending upon how much you make, you probably have a third a sheet left, give or take, doesn't matter. So what I did was, because I had just enough left over, was I took, now pretend this is a leftover sheet, say we'll say this is a third sheet, I just took them and epoxied the bottom, set it up. I used something to hold them straight, and where was it? I forget, I had something here that I used. Well, for now we're going to use that and pretend that that's holding it level and straight. Epoxied that to the bottom, put your epoxy on your foam and everything, and put it like that, and then just went from there, epoxied another one, and put them all together, all lined up, make sure to keep them even, and then I went down the line epoxying them all together, until I had them all right, and then I just waited. The set time is 5 minutes. I think the cure time they do say is 1 hour. I left it sit overnight just to be sure. And what happened was when I was all done, all I did was I took my turkey carver and trimmed off the edge to make it flush with the rest of it, and it looked, it created the final look. When I was all done with that, for a little bit of reinforcement, now my thing's falling over here, so we're going to move it around. But on the back, I put a plate, and I'm going to quickly mock this up just to show. So we're going to put that like that. Alright, yep. So what I did was I then took, and I'm going to show with a scrap piece. I made about a 2-inch piece to go across the back. You could probably make it bigger if you wanted to. That was the piece I had at the moment, and I epoxy it to the back. Now what that does is that helps hold it together, gives a little more support to the foam, and allows you, especially if you've got bigger, heavier steel guns like I do, just makes it a little more sturdy. So that's pretty much how you assemble it, and it's really not too difficult. Like I said, the nice thing about this particular style is you can pretty much get away with doing it with, if you had to, a box cutter, a pair of scissors, and just some epoxy. So that's showing how to make it. After that, once it all sets, you just decide how you want to finish it. I finish it with Plasta Dip. I happen to have gray handy, so I sprayed it gray. You want to get several coats on it. You want to make sure that it is a nice thick coating, because what that does is, even though this stuff is pretty safe for your guns, I mean, it's basically poster board, so it's certainly not going to hurt your guns. Neither will the foam, because the foam is, once again, just foam. The Plasta Dip adds a little bit of extra protection for it, and it adds a little bit of grip for holding them upright, which is nice. Make sure the one thing to do is when you're spraying it, make sure to at least put one coat on the bottom. And the reason you put one coat on the bottom is because this stuff is slick, and once it's loaded down with, mine's going to hold 4 guns, but once it's loaded down, it's not going to be easily movable, but you won't have to worry about sliding inside your safe when you put a gun in or take a gun out. So it just adds that little bit of extra rigidity in holding the thing in place. So that's my take on a pistol rack for inside your gun safe. You can crank out several of these, for probably under $20, which is nice, because I know some of the pistol racks, some of the simpler, even the metal ones, are 15 to 20. I even saw one at Dick's Sporting Goods for 25, and I kind of thought that was a bit much. But I got this poster board for $2 a sheet, and I got the piece of foam for it was about $6, and for like I said, one sheet of this, I've got, out of one sheet I was able to make two 4-gun things. All these blanks here are going to get put together into another one, and so for basically less than $10, I've made one of them, because the epoxy is about $4. So, and you can coat them with any Plasta Dip or any paint you might have laying around. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them, and have a good day.